AG Pamela Bondi, another victory for President Trump. In a 2-1 ruling, the D.C. Circuit sided with the Justice Department attorneys in our effort to dismantle the CFPB and rein in crippling Obama-era regulations. So that is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, if I'm not mistaken. So, and I believe she did a follow-up as a response. I think it's a very short one. Yeah, the CFPB is now free to right-size itself in accordance with the law to best serve the American people. So I decided to do a quick search on Grok to see what exactly is it about the CFPB that they have an issue with. And apparently there's quite a few things that are problematic with this organization. So I'm going to go over a couple of these. So what is bad about the CFPB? So number one being lack of accountability. The CFPB structure with a single director who could initially only be fired for cause and funding from the Federal Reserve rather than congressional appropriations is seen as an insulating it from democratic oversight. Critics argue this allows the agency to pursue aggressive policies without sufficient checks from elected officials. Then there's also regulatory overreach. Critics, particularly Republicans and financial industry groups, claim the CFPB imposes burdensome regulations that stifle innovation and increase compliance costs for businesses, especially smaller banks and credit unions. For example, its rules on payday lending and junk fees, which include overdraft and credit card late fees, are seen as limiting consumer access to credit and raising base costs for financial services. I mean, I don't know about all that. I think everybody would be on board with lowering overdraft fees. However, there is a problem with that, which is mentioned here. And see, the next one, duplicative functions. The CFPB's mission overlaps with existing agencies like the SEC, FDIC, and FTC, which already regulates financial misconduct. Critics argue it unnecessarily duplicates efforts, adding bureaucracy and costs without providing unique consumer protections. So basically, there's already oversight for all this stuff, and essentially this organization is just more or less irrelevant, I guess. Or it just allows it to create more of whatever it wants to without having to go through the oversight that the FDIC, the FTC, and the SEC do have to go through. So paternalistic policies. Regulations like the 2017 payday lending rule, which restricts high-cost loans, are criticized as paternalistic, limiting options for low-income consumers who rely on such credit. Critics say this pushes borrowers toward riskier alternatives like loan sharks. And the economic impact. This one I thought was interesting. Policies targeting fees such as capping overdraft fees at $5 or credit card late fees at $8 are said to backfire by forcing banks to raise other fees, tighten credit, or eliminate services like free checking, potentially harming low-income consumers the most. I just thought that seems legit, I guess. If that's really what's happening, I could see that actually being the case, that banks are like, well, if we're not able to earn money from these overdraft fees, then we're going to have to find it somewhere else. Even though aren't banks, their big bread and butter, isn't it just loaning out money that people have in their savings accounts? Isn't that the whole thing that banks do? They take the money that you're putting in your savings and they're using it to give out car loans and mortgages and stuff like that. I mean, I figure they'd make plenty. I would really hope that they're not that heavily depending on overdraft fees, because that's predatory, in my opinion. Questionable enforcement methods. The CFPB's approach to issues like auto lending discrimination using proxies like last names and zip codes to infer race has been criticized as unreliable and overstepping its authority, especially since auto dealers are exempt from its oversight. Good grief, man. I mean, they deal with financials all the time. They make loans all the time. Even auto dealers, maybe not the main ones, but definitely buy here, pay here lots. They do a lot of their financing from within, which is how you can go in there with the worst credit imaginable and they'll still give you a loan because they don't have to go through a bank to get your credit approved. Anyway, a 2018 Congressional Review Act action overturned such guidance. And it looks like the last one here, partisan bias allegations. Some critics view the CFPB as a politically motivated agency, particularly under directors like Rohit Chopra, accused of pushing a woke or anti-business agenda. its aggressive enforcement and rapid policy changes are seen as favoring ideological goals over practical consumer benefits. And there's a little bit more information here, but you can just hop on Grok yourself and then ask it, and it'll give you the skinny on at least what it gave me. I'm assuming it'll give you the same info. So so that's the CFPB in a nutshell. Well, the things that people are criticizing it for, and it was first implemented in 2011, I think. 2011 under Obama. It was definitely under Obama who created the CFPB. Well, there you go right there. Crippling Obama-era regulation.